Hello. Let me get a light on real quick here. So I'm just going to be reading from O'Connor's prayer journal, and uh, so just the undated material for right now. Here's the book. It starts without missing pages, so it's kind of starting mid-sentence. Effort at artistry in this rather than thinking of you and feeling inspired with the love I wish I had. Dear God, I cannot love thee the way I want to. You are the slim crescent of a moon that I see, and myself is the earth's shadow that keeps me from seeing all the moon. The crescent is very beautiful, and perhaps that is all one like I am should or could see. But what I am afraid of, dear God, is that my self shadow will grow so large that it blocks the whole moon, and that I will judge myself by the shadow that is nothing. I do not know you, God, because I am in the way. Please help me to push myself aside. I want very much to succeed in the world with what I want to do. I have prayed to you about this with my mind and my nerves on it, and strung my nerves into a tension over it, and said, "Oh God, please," and "I must," and "Please, please." I have not asked you, I feel, in the right way. Let me henceforth ask you with resignation, that not being or meant to be a slacking up in prayer, but a less frenzied kind, realizing that the frenzy is caused by an eagerness for what I want and not a spiritual trust. I do not wish to presume, I want to love. O God, please make my mind clear. Please make it clean. I ask you for a greater love for my Holy Mother, and I ask for a greater love for you. Please help me to get down under things and find where you are. I do not mean to deny the traditional prayers I have said all my life, but I have been saying them and not feeling them. My attention is always very fugitive. This way I have it every instant. I can feel a warmth of love heating me when I think and write, "This is you, this to you." Please do not let the explanations of the psychologists about this make it turn suddenly cold. My intellect is so limited, Lord, that I can only trust in you to preserve me as I should be. Please help all the ones I love to be free from their suffering. Please forgive me. Just a quick note: this journal was written while Flannery O'Connor was at the University of Iowa doing her master's program in creative writing. Um, and 1946, she wasn't even 21 years old. My dear God, I am impressed with how much I have to be thankful for in a material sense. And in a spiritual sense, I have the opportunity of being even more fortunate. But it seems apparent to me that I am not translating this opportunity into fact. You say, dear God, to ask for grace and it will be given. I ask for it. I realize that there is more to it than that I have to behave like I want it. Not those who say, Lord, Lord, but those who do the will of my Father. Please help me to know the will of my Father. Not a scrupulous nervousness, nor yet a lax presumption, but a clear, reasonable knowledge, and after this give me a strong will to be able to bend it to the will of the Father. Please let Christian principles permeate my writing, and please let there be enough of my writing published for Christian principles to permeate. I dread, O Lord, losing my faith. My mind is not strong. It is a prey to all sorts of intellectual quackery. I do not want it to be fear which keeps me in the church. I don't want to be a coward, staying with you because I fear hell. I should reason that if I fear hell, I can be assured of the author of it. But learned people can analyze for me why I fear hell, and their implication is that there is no hell. but I believe in hell. Hell seems a great deal more feasible to my weak mind than heaven. No doubt because hell is a more earthly seeming thing. I can fancy the tortures of the damned, but I cannot imagine the disembodied souls hanging in a crystal for all eternity praising God. It is natural that I should not imagine this. If we could accurately map heaven, some of our up and coming scientists would begin drawing blueprints for its improvement, and the bourgeois would sell guides 10 cents the copy to all over 65. But I do not mean to be clever, although I do mean to be clever on second thought, and I like to be clever and want to be considered so. But the point more specifically here is I don't want to fear to be out. I want to love to be in. I don't want to believe in hell, but in heaven. Stating this does me no good. It is a matter of the gift of grace. Help me to feel that I will give up every earthly thing for this. I do not mean becoming a nun. Third entry. My dear God, how stupid we people are until you give us something. Even in praying, it is you who have to pray in us. I would like to write a beautiful prayer, but I have nothing to do it from. There is a whole sensible world around me that I should be able to turn to your praise, but I cannot do it. Yet at some insipid moment when I may possibly be thinking of floor wax or pigeon eggs, the opening of a beautiful prayer may come up from my subconscious and lead me to write something exalted. I am not a philosopher, or I could understand these things. If I knew all of myself, dear God, if I could discover everything in me pedantic, ego- egocentric, in any way insincere, what would I be then? But what would I do about those feelings that are now fear, now joy, that lie too deep to be touched by my understanding? I am afraid of insidious hands, O Lord, which grope into the darkness of my soul. Please be my guard against them. Please be the cover at the top of the passage. I am keeping my faith by laziness, dear God. But that is an idea that would appeal to someone who could only think. Next entry. My dear God, I do not want this to be a metaphysical exercise, but something in praise of God. It is probably more liable to being therapeutical than metaphysical, with the elements of self underlying its thoughts. Prayers should be composed, I understand, of adoration, contrition, thanksgiving, and supplication, and I would like to see what I can do with each without writing an exegesis. It is the adoration of you, dear God, that most dismays me. I cannot comprehend the exaltation that must be due you. Intellectually, I assent. Let us adore God. But can we do that without feeling? To feel, we must know. And for this, when it is practically impossible for us to get it ourselves, not completely, of course, but what we can, we are dependent on God. We are dependent on God for our adoration of Him. Adoration, that is, in the fullest sense of the term. Give me the grace, dear God, to adore you. For even this I cannot do for myself. Give me the grace to adore you with the excitement of the old priests when they sacrificed a lamb to you. Give me the grace to adore you with the awe that fills your priests when they sacrifice the lamb on our altars. Give me the grace to be impatient for the time when I shall see you face to face and need no stimulus than to adore you. Give me the grace, dear God, to see the bareness and the misery of the places where you are not adored but desecrated. Next entry. Dear God, I am so discouraged about my work. I have the feeling of discouragement that is. I realize I don't know what I realize. Please help me, dear God, to be a good writer and to be something else accepted. That is so far from what I deserve. Of course, that I am naturally struck with the nerve of it. Contrition in me is largely imperfect. I don't know if I've ever been sorry for a sin because it hurt you. That kind of contrition is better than none, but it is selfish. To have the other kind, it is necessary to have knowledge, faith extraordinary. All boils down to grace, I suppose. Again, asking God to help us be sorry for having hurt him. I am afraid of pain, and I suppose that is what we have to get grace. Give me the courage to stand the pain to get the grace, O Lord. Help me with this life that seems so treacherous, so disappointing. Next entry. Dear God, tonight it is not disappointing because you have given me a story. Don't let me ever think, dear God, that I was anything but the instrument for your story, just like the typewriter was mine. Please let the story, dear God, and its revisions be made too clear for any false and low interpretation, because in it I am not trying to disparage anybody's religion, although when it was coming out, I didn't know exactly what I was trying to do or what it was going to mean. I don't know now if it is consistent. Please don't let me have to scrap the story because it turns out to mean more wrong than right, or any wrong. I want it to mean that the good in man sometimes shows through his commercialism, but that is not the fault of the commercialism that it does. Perhaps the idea would be that good can show through even something that is cheap. I don't know, but dear God, I wish you would take care of making it a sound story because I don't know how, just like I didn't know how to write it, but it came. Anyway, it all brings me to Thanksgiving, the third thing to include in prayer. When I think of all I have to be thankful for, I wonder that you don't just kill me now because you've done so much for me already and I haven't been particularly grateful. My thanksgiving is never in the form of self sacrifice. A few memorized prayers, babbled once over lightly. All this disgusts me in myself, but does not fill me with the poignant feeling I should have to adore you with, to be sorry with, or to thank you with. Perhaps the feeling I keep asking for is something again selfish, something to help me to feel that everything with me is all right. And yet it seems only natural, but maybe being thus natural is being thus selfish. My mind is a most insecure thing not to be depended on. It gives me scruples at one minute and leaves me lax the next. If I must know all these things through the mind, dear Lord, please strengthen mine. Thank you, dear God. I believe I do feel thankful for all you've done for me. I want to. I do. And thank my dear mother, whom I do love, Our Lady of Perpetual Help. Next entry. My dear God, supplication. This is the only one of the four I am competent in. It takes no supernatural grace to ask for what one wants, and I have asked you bountifully, O Lord. I believe it is right to ask you to, and to ask our mother to ask you, but I don't want to overemphasize this angle of my prayers. Help me to ask you, O Lord, for what is good for me to have, for what I can have and do your service by having. I have been reading Mr. Kafka, and I feel his problem of getting grace, but I see it doesn't have to be that way for the Catholic who can go to communion every day. The Monsignor today said it was the business of reason, not emotion, the love of God. The emotion would be a help. I realized last time that it would be a selfish one. Oh dear God, the reason is very empty. I suppose mine is also lazy, but I want to get near you. Yet it seems almost a sin to suggest such a thing, even. Perhaps communion doesn't give the nearness I mean. The nearness I mean comes after death, perhaps. It is what we are struggling for, and if I found it, either I would be dead or I would have seen it for a second and life would be intolerable. I don't know about this or anything. It sounds puerile, my saying anything so obvious.